Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155 from UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not.
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championship, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championships, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Arnel De Leon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family. 2020 has been a very difficult year, but we're nearing right the end here. We're nearing right the end. Sports culture is practically back to an extent. I miss fans, everyone misses fans, even the athletes. They miss the large crowd environment because crowds can make an event feel bigger than what it actually is. And so, you love mixed martial arts, I love mixed martial arts, and sadly, after report the retirement of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Today's episode, I'll be covering UFC 254, a night full of a whole lot of action, and this has to be one of my favorite cards of the year 2020, because from top to bottom, every fight was super intriguing, exciting, because let's just be perfectly honest here, there definitely are some cards, whether it be UFC Fight Night cards, ESPN cards, pay-per-view cards, where you watch a show and you're like, man, dude, that fight's boring, that fight's alright, but then the co-main event and main event, oh yeah, those are the fights I want to see, definitely. When I bring my friends over to go watch UFC events or MMA events with me, some of they're like, okay, I'm only here to watch, the main event or the co-main event, and they're on the phone the entire time, doing something else, like during the first 3 or 4 fights. But here, though, from top to bottom, oh my goodness, there's always either something on the line or there's heavy stipulations that are on top of it, though. So, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. This is for the UFC lightweight title. I'll be talking about the main event, then dropping down from there, from the most important fight, dropping down. And so, we all know Khabib was able to defeat Justin Gaethje, and sadly, he ended up retiring. I'll go into this later. But first round here starts off high pace. This fight was a high pace fight here. I have never seen Khabib fight as fast as he did in this one fight here. It was the level of boxing that these two showed was far and far ahead of any type of boxing that was shown in the rest of this entire card here. The way how Gaichi and Khabib, how they present themselves, it felt like a huge big fight feel. The way they're boxing with one another, the way they're doing a chess match in the octagon, it was definitely felt like a true main event. It felt like, oh man, this fight involves without a doubt 2 of the best fighters of the UFC. That's how it really felt like watching this fight in just the first 2 minutes of this fight. And so the first 30 seconds is them trying to feel each other out. 1 minute in, the pace kind of increases, but then in the 2-minute mark of the first round, oh my goodness, these guys are boxing each other, pulling off very quick movements here. There was never one single instance where one of them became passive or one of them was trying to bait the other one out. It was a case of boom, 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 boom. As in Khabib, he lunges in, left hook, Gaethje ducks over, goes over to his right, goes in for a leg kick. Khabib sprawls down low, tries to go catch the leg kick, and then they both stand right back up. Gaethje goes in for a mid kick. Khabib dives in for a flying knee. Wow, it's a whole lot of action, and both these guys are just going at it, man. There was the filling out period was a minute. After that filling out period, dude, I felt like I needed a drink afterwards. I felt like I needed to have a hot cocoa or coffee, because by the end of the first round, the camera goes towards Justin Gaethje, and Justin Gaethje, I've never seen this guy or heard this guy breathe as much as he did, because usually in a Justin Gaethje fight, he's known for amazing cardio, his great cardio, and he can keep up a consistent pace throughout all 5 rounds or all 3 rounds of action. But in this scenario here, with the way how Gaichi fought, so Gaichi fought in a certain style that's far different from any fight he's had to go through when he was fighting Khabib here. Because the normal Justin Gaethje stance is the traditional boxing stance. Like if you see him versus Ferguson, him versus Kevin Lee, his stance usually is arms up, tights, and he's slowly walking back and forth in a vertical plane towards his opponents. He usually almost never sidesteps here. And so, for Justin Gaethje versus Khabib, instead of the traditional boxing stance where you're walking within a vertical plane, he's instead walking horizontally, and he's doing sidestepping, a whole lot of sidestepping. Like, these guys pretty much did laps around the octagon. Unintentional laps, but these guys practically did laps around the octagon. And Justin Gaethje, what he did, instead of raising his arms up, he put them down in pretty much kind of like a wrestling position. He put him like, because he was waiting for a takedown here. We all know how this fight was going to turn out. We all know this fight was going to be a wrestling battle. And the huge question marks going to this battle was, is Justin Gaethje's wrestling good enough to withstand Khabib? We know Gaichi is good enough as a striker to beat Khabib, but is he good enough as a grappler, as a wrestler? So for Gaichi, he changed his stance. He put his arms low, so he's always prepping up for the takedown. And note, Khabib attempted 2 takedowns in the first round. He got 1 takedown in the end of the first round, but the initial first takedown and all the other attempts to which Khabib tries to go down under and tries to grab on the leg, they don't really pan out well for Khabib. They just don't. So, how most of this fight really went off was Gaichi, his arms are low, so Khabib was like, alright then, I can't grapple with this guy initially. I know I can grapple this guy later on, but right now, I'm just going to go and tie this man out with my huge pace, with my boxing. He does what Colby Covington is mostly known for doing, in that he just does not care about fighting outside the pocket. He's always right in the middle of the pocket. He's not fighting inside, he's not fighting outside. He's fighting within the middle, and he's throwing out these like barrages of like jabs and strikes. And I don't think there was a 3 or 4 second window to which Khabib wasn't throwing a strike. I don't think like this guy was constantly throwing something here. Justin Gaethje is pretty much dancing in this octagon here. He's walking around the octagon here. He never lets up. He's always sidestepping every single thing Khabib is doing. He's always ducking under the hooks of Khabib. He's always doing something. He's always going for a leg kick. The pace of this fight was insane. It's more insane than any Colby Covington fight, especially the fight against RDA. And I will note this though, the way how Justin Gaethje handled the pressure of Khabib was excellent. Yeah, it was excellent. Justin Gaethje did what many fighters should do when they're handling a fighter who pressures them. He doesn't do what Kyron Willie does, where he just takes it, and then he's just buying time and waiting for the counterpunch. No. Gaichi, he's constantly moving, he's ducking under, he's trying to reverse the pressure and reverse the pace of the fight towards his side, and he's trying to push Khabib to be back in the center of the octagon. That's what's happening. Khabib's trying to pressure Gaichi onto the cage. Gaichi, he's ducking under, he's moving side to side, and he's trying to force Khabib to fight in the middle of the octagon. Now, for the most part, it kind of worked. Kind of, because one of the downsides of Justin Gaethje fighting with the stance he did in this fight, with his arms being low, Khabib can pretty much be a headhunter here. He can be a headhunter. Now, Khabib isn't a knockout artist. We can agree with that. He's a great boxer. Definitely. He's a great striker. But he ain't a knockout artist. So for Justin Gaethje's camp, his idea is like, okay, I will let Khabib go and just hit me in the head. I will let him do that because I know I am safe. I would rather have Khabib land clean shots to the head on me as opposed to grappling and taking me down. Because I know I can take on and I can handle the strikes of Khabib. I am unsure if I can handle the grappling of Khabib. So I think by the end of the first round, the stats show that it was 24-22 in favor of Khabib. Khabib got +2 more significant strikes than Gaethje, and also he landed more total strikes here. And I'm speaking right now as the fight just ended, and hopefully they already pulled up the exact fight stats here. So, oops. Alright, so here that is. So Khabib, he landed 26 of 80 total strikes. He attempted 34 more strikes than Justin Gaethje. He landed 32.5%. He landed 26 of 80 significant strikes, and he got 2 of 3 takedowns. First one got stopped. Second round, which he was really committed to, came in the final minutes of the first round. And then when it came to the second round, that's when Khabib just grappled, shooting for a double leg takedown, and then he went for the triangle choke from there. But in the first round here, it was 24-22 in favor of Khabib. Second round. So at this point here, Justin Gaethje, he has landed 29 of 46 total strikes. Although he attempted less strikes than Khabib, the way how I viewed it, Justin Gaethje, he landed the better shots than Khabib. He landed better counter punches that felt a lot more impactful. He landed the cleaner shots. And if although Justin Gaethje, he lost statistically in the first round because he got out-grappled, and also Khabib landed more significant strikes. Alright then, if Justin can keep up that pace through 5 rounds of action, the momentum can swing towards Gaethje here. So it was kind of a good thing for both sides. Gaethje had a good performance in the first round. Khabib had a good performance in the first round. Khabib edges Justin Gaethje out, but the fight became how Gaethje wanted to go. And then we get to the second round here. So Khabib at this point in the second round, he is committed to the takedown here. He's not going to go dive in there and pull off some strikes. And also, this is coming in from the corner of Gaethje's crew, where they said, hey, Justin, calm down, okay? Calm down, don't choke, don't mess us up, don't go too crazy on Khabib. Alright? Okay then, so second round starts. Khabib committed for the takedown. Justin Gaethje a lot less crazy in the second round here. And instead, he's hitting these like super clean, accurate as all heck strikes onto Khabib, hitting some nasty leg kicks. And if Justin Gaethje just kept throwing leg kicks over and over and over again on Khabib, because note, Khabib never checks leg kicks. He never does. He is perfectly fine getting hit in the leg by a leg kick if he knows at some moment he can time to grab the leg and shoot for a takedown. He doesn't kick in. So if you can time it correctly, where Khabib is off time in his reaction to the takedown, for him trying to go for a takedown or him grabbing onto the leg, you have some free shots on Khabib for leg kicks. And Gaethje was doing a good job. I would say Gaethje had a more competitive first round than Khabib has had with Poirier and Conor McGregor, without a doubt. And so Gaethje, he's landing leg kick after leg kick after leg kick. And I said that leg kicks are an opening you can do on Khabib, but once Khabib recognizes and he can go tell and he can have the reads for when the leg kicks are going to come in, that's when he's going to shoot him for a takedown. So Justin Gaethje, he throws in for a right leg kick, stuns Khabib's legs, and then Khabib quickly goes for a level change, ducks under, goes in for a takedown here. I'm trying to find the exact. So yeah, Khabib reacts to the leg kick, but immediately shoots in for a takedown. He transitions from back to mount, goes for a triangle choke, and sadly enough, Justin Gaethje, he tapped out. The referee didn't see the tap out initially. It took a while. And so Gaethje, he tapped out, and it wasn't until Justin Gaethje was out cold did the referee come in and break it. Ref, you need to do a better job catching that, okay? Upon second viewing, it was very difficult to even tell if Gaethje even tapped out. Daniel Cormier was like, wait a minute. Did he tap out? Because Cormier was doing commentary. Did he tap out? And, okay, he tapped out then. Alright, sure. So that was a tap out. Oh, man, referee should have done something earlier. So Gaethje, he tapped out. Referee didn't stop it. Sad. But your winner by submission in the second round goes to Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is still your UFC lightweight champion. Sort of. And when I say sort of, it's because we got the breaking news here. Even after the fight, Khabib, the guy is just super emotional about this victory. He defeats Justin Gaethje, then he just stands up, falls over, and starts crying. As like he's in a fetal position and starts crying. And then you see like his entire team come over there, they congratulate him. Justin Gaethje come over there, they congratulate him. Someone gives Khabib a towel because the guy is just crying his tears out. And then he went to the microphone. John Anik was interviewing with Khabib, and Khabib announces that this will be his last fight in the UFC. It took me by surprise. Nobody saw it coming. There was so many rumors flying about as to what was next for Khabib's future after the Gaichi fights. But Khabib, man, the way how he talked in the post-fight interview here, he looked like he made up his mind. That's what I'm saying here. I'm no mind reader here. But the way how Khabib presented himself, especially considering, with the passing of his father, the whole pandemic issue going on right now, him moving to a different camp, things are changing in the life of Khabib, and it was very telling, especially if you follow Khabib in his outside the MMA circle interviews. You can kind of tell that this is going to be the direction he goes to. But I'll be talking about Khabib's future after a short break. Here, once again, you listen to the GSMC MMA podcast. See you soon.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. I am discussing UFC 254. Justin Gaethje versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov was able to retain his UFC lightweight title by submitting Justin Gaethje via triangle choke. Very impressive victory there. But the big thing coming out right now is that Khabib announced his retirement. Now, we all know Khabib was going to retire soon. We all knew that. Khabib didn't tell anybody that he was going to be retiring, other than probably people in his close circle. But Khabib, on the post-fight interview, he wanted to say that he had a talk with his mom, and then his mom told him to not fight because he should fight when his father is on this earth. And sadly, Khabib's father passed away still very recently, back in the summer. So Khabib, it was incredibly heartbroken about that. Everyone knows that Khabib is super close to his father, and he takes huge priority on family. It's I kind of see this coming though. I see it though, but I'm unsure what exactly is the future of Khabib here. Is he gonna be a trainer? Will he continue being a fighter in Russia? He says this will be his last fight in the UFC. But who's to say that his last fight will not be, in some other organization? It can definitely be a real possibility. Or he's going to go do something else. I will never forget the gymnasium Q&A interview he did, where he was asked to go to this school gymnasium for elementary school age kids. And there, all the kids would ask the champ questions. And Khabib will be all joking and jovial. He'll be like, yeah, man, always eat your cereal because don't be like Conor McGregor. He is bad. Yeah. And when you go to the old AKA videos, how you see him talk and interact with everyone else, he's always joking and jovial. There was a period in time where people really don't like Khabib, and I don't like Khabib because he took himself super seriously. But once he really started getting into AKA and started being a lot more jovial, and this is especially during his huge climb from 2017, starting from 2017, we started seeing a different side of Khabib. He was like, yeah, man, family first. This is me. I love fighting. Fighting is my life, man. I can do this forever. I love my father. My father is an amazing person here. Hey, Cormier, what's going on there? It's especially when a lot of videos started being recommended to me of Daniel Cormier and Khabib messing around, goofing around there. He's training with all these fighters. It's if you watch how everybody interacts with Khabib, everyone loves Khabib. Everyone loves joking and being friendly with the guy. So Khabib, in the past 3 years, has evolved himself from the super serious, no-nonsense wrestler who can barely speak English to now a guy who is perfectly fine laughing, being jovial, joking around with others while learning how to speak English. And then his English has developed immensely. I think there was a video out there, it's still shown. It's like Khabib learning English. And so Khabib would struggle. He would struggle saying simple words like plates or the or it. He didn't know how to describe nouns in English. And he was like with his like training group of buddies. And like he was struggling mightily about it. Now, cut 10 years later, this guy has developed really good English. Really good. And I'm happy about it. I really am. But in that video where it's like multiple videos where he was talking with the kids in the gymnasium, one kid stood out with a question. This one, I think it's a little girl. The little girl asked Khabib, "Hey, Khabib, what do you want to do? Like, what are your hobbies outside of fighting?" And then Khabib, who usually is a jovial person, he's like, "Oh yeah, Connor sucks. Yeah, man, always be good to your parents. Yeah." Khabib, instead of being jovial, was like, "What do I want to do outside of fighting? Or what are my hobbies outside of fighting?" I like... back at home, I am planting fruit right now, for the upcoming summer. And hopefully, it's gonna grow. Yeah. Then the entire gymnasium is like, "Yeah, Khabib, woo, yeah, good on you for planning." And then Khabib took a deep sigh, like, he looks over to the side, and he gives that look. Khabib gives that look to the high school kid who just graduated high school, but has no ambitions of anything else. And like someone asks him, "Hey, kid, what do you want to do, and what do you want to study when you get to college?" And most kids, especially nowadays in 2020, have the tendency of being undecided. Like, I think there's like a format. I think there's a format there for the University of Irvine where they accepted the highest number of students that signed themselves up for being undecided more than any other year ever in the school's history. And that was for UCI. And also the same thing also applies to Berkeley and Davis, where they're just getting all these applications nowadays from these high school students, and they always keep saying undecided. I think there's a number that went out there. I might be wrong this, someone can fact check me here, but about 44% of students, there's like a 44% increase of students going to college being undecided on what they want to do in their lives. And like, I've been in that position before. I've had friends who've been in that position. I've spent a lot of time in the counseling office, and Khabib gave the exact same face that I did when someone asked me, "Hey, what do you want to do in your life?" You take the deep breather, you look off to your side, you're shrugging your shoulders, you're looking like your left, you're looking to your right, you're trying to figure out where the answer is, but you don't know where it is. And then from that moment on, anything else that happens past that, you start giving short answers, because that's what Khabib did. Khabib was giving all these long answers. Then this little kid asked him, "Hey, what do you want to do outside of MMA?" And he's like, "Planting, sure." Gives a deep sigh. And then this led me to think about the pre-fight press conference where they did with Justin Gaethje, and the dude was like just flabbergasted because all the reporters kept asking legacy questions for Khabib. Like, "Hey Khabib, when you retire, how do you want people to think about you?" Or, "Hey Khabib, when you do retire, what do you think is going to happen in the field?" Like, "Hey Khabib, what are your intentions outside of mixed martial arts?" "Hey Khabib, there are a lot of fighters out there who still want to challenge you. What do you think?" And Khabib all the time will like put his hand on his face, and he'll give a short smirk. He's like, I don't know. That was a lot of his answers in the press conference. He was like, "I don't know." And yeah. One interviewer asked him, "Hey, what do you think about being considered the GOAT besides Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson?" And Khabib was like, "I'm in that same boat, really? I am? Really? I don't think I am, but thank you, I guess." So Khabib, he seems checked out whenever discussions about what he wants to do post-fight or how his life will be after retirement. He's always checked out in these types of questions here. And then we get to the fights. He wins the fights. He says he wants to retire. And also if you watch the UFC, like the short little mini movies that they post on YouTube, it's like UFC Embedded, where they follow all the fighters and what's going on with them. Khabib has been pretty isolated for the most part. He keeps himself very, very private from what's going on out there. He handled this fight very seriously, and he wasn't as like joking around. I still remember I think there was a UFC mini movie where it was following Khabib and his weight cutting problems, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Khabib. Let's go kart racing and let's have tiramisu." And now we see these videos of Khabib being like, "Hi, I'm Khabib. Yep, I'm gonna go start training right now. Diet, then I'm gonna sleep. Yep, that's all I have. That's all I'm doing." So yeah. So Khabib, so the signs were always there that he felt disconnected. It felt like he really. It's like somebody who knows that the exit is right there, and they're just putting up with the next thing in line, but they're ready to leave right now. I'm a firm believer that even if Khabib were to lose this fight against Justin Gaethje, Khabib, instead of being like, "I want a rematch," would be like, "You know what? It happened. I lost. I'm ready to move on in my life. I retire. See ya." So what's next for Khabib? I read up reports out there that Khabib wants to take over his his father's position as being a trainer, and he wants to go and push on and become a person who can develop other fighters. When he was asked, I think someone was asking him about Tony Ferguson. It was like, "Hey, Khabib, who do you think Tony Ferguson should face as he tries to bounce himself up and try to get up in the rankings?" And Khabib said, "I don't know. I don't think I should fight Tony Ferguson, but I know a lot of other people who should fight him. I got all these great fighters here. One of them right now just got in. I think it's Akhmedov, who's one of his teammates. He's like, Akhmedov here. He's currently training right now. He just got into the top 10. I think it's his time to shine right now. I don't think it's going to be me and Tony Ferguson. I think this guy here has a whole lot of potential." And there are a lot of videos out there where Khabib, he enjoys it. He enjoys training other fighters. He enjoys pushing on ideas and fighting philosophies and training other fighters. He loves it. He obviously loves doing this. That's why a lot of people are saying "Oh man, he'll take over the position as what his father was, and that should be primarily a trainer." And I can see that. I can see Khabib just staying at home, chilling, relaxing, being a family person. Khabib places a lot of emphasis in family, and he's always like, "I am so humbled that I surround myself in a circle full of people who are willing to push me. I want to do the same thing and push other people now." So, whatever Khabib wants to do in his future, whether it be training the next generation of great Dagestan fighters, because there are a lot of them right now coming over to America, and they're making a huge name for themselves. He's got a great team behind him. He's got a great management team who are willing to go and push others to go fight and become great fighters. So, whatever the future is for Khabib, I'm supportive of it. I'm happy that Khabib was able to leave the octagon at his own terms. The only thing I'm unhappy with is, yet again, we're having another UFC title being vacated again. Gosh darn it. Oh man, this always happens. It always does. Where we're having a champion who's on this great run, and then they end up leaving because of course people want to retire as champion. They don't want to retire at a downslope. They want to retire at an upslope here. I get it. It happens. But Khabib, he's vacating his lightweight title, and now there's speculation going on that we will might see Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, that fight being for the vacant title fight, for the vacant lightweight title, which makes a whole lot of sense. But even then, we're still unsure if even Poirier and Conor McGregor is even going to happen in the first place. We're unsure about that. In the post-fight presser, somebody asked Dana White, "Hey Dana, now that the title is vacated, will Conor McGregor versus Poirier, will that fight be now for the vacant title?" And Dana White, he's like, "I don't know. Okay, guys, I know I'm like the CEO, I know I'm like the president and all that stuff, dude, but don't ask me questions about the future because I don't know what's going to happen in the future." We're unsure even if Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor are even going to fight at all. Last time I checked, Dustin Poirier, he stopped negotiating with the UFC. He was going to be fighting against Tony Ferguson in the co-main event of this card. but he declined it. He declined fighting in this card because he wanted more money or for economic issues. I get it. There are rumors out there that Dustin Poirier, he wants to go retire. Justin Gaethje, he says, he has like 5 wars left in them. We got Conor McGregor, who's off and on in the lightweight division. We don't even know if the guy even is like if even is gonna make a comeback. We expect him to make a comeback, but we don't know when that's gonna happen. Tony Ferguson, he's up for a fight, and there could be a fight between him and Michael Chandler. But Tony Ferguson, he doesn't want to fight against Michael Chandler because he's an unranked guy. But the UFC wants to push Michael Chandler because the dude is a former champion. There was even like a 35-second hype package showing Michael Chandler. And like no other fighter has got this, except for maybe like Brock Lesnar and Alistair Overeem. But like, Michael Chandler, 3-time world champion, NCAA Division I champion. And then we see a highlight reel of Michael Chandler. Then we hear somebody in confidence be like, Michael Chandler is without a doubt one of the best fighters in the entire world. And in the middle of the show here, we get Michael Chandler doing like an impromptu interview with Daniel Cormier, and it's like, man, the UFC really wants to push Michael Chandler. So right now, how the lightweight scene is being seen, we have Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, and Tony Ferguson. A whole lot of question marks going on right now. But I'm sort of happy knowing that fighters like Charles Oliveira could possibly go up there and compete with the top 5 now. Like Dan Hooker, he can compete along with the top 5. But sadly, for the most part here, for some reason, Kevin Lee is still ranked top 10. I don't know why. We got fighters like Benelli Dariush, who could be moving up in the rankings as Khabib retires. So there are some fun things to look forward to for the lightweight division. You are listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back right after a short break here.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. Once again, you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. I am Arnel De Leon saying thank you once again for listening. Let's talk about the rest of the card here for UFC 254. Khabib vs. Gaichi was a great fight, but also another great fight here was Robert Whittaker vs. Jared Cannonier. Winner of this fight will potentially be the number one contender for Israel Adesanya's middleweight title. So coming to this fight here, a lot of people expected Cannonier to go in. Sorry, I'm used to calling him Cannonier, but it's Cannonier. So Cannonier was expected to go win this fight. Even Dana himself said in the post-fight presser that he believed Cannonier was going to go defeat Robert Whittaker. And there's a lot of talks going on here that if Cannonier were to defeat Robert Whittaker, because Israel Adesanya called out Cannonier in his fight against Paulo Costa, that Cannonier would be next to fight against Izzy. But Robert Whittaker, he's in the way here. There's speculation going on here that even if Robert Whittaker were to defeat Cannonier, because Whittaker already lost to Israel Adesanya, we're not going to go see a rematch. But you know what? Things have turned. Going off my fight notes here, both fighters immediately start slipping in as they start throwing in leg kicks. Like bang, 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 leg kick after leg kick after leg kick. Cannonier is throwing body and leg kicks, but Whittaker says, you know what? Screw it. I give up in the leg kick department here, because Cannonier had like a 4-inch reach advantage, which is like insane. I'm surprised Robert Whittaker was able to do as much as he did in this fight, considering the advantage that Cannonier had, and that Cannonier never really took advantage of here. But Cannonier, he's throwing body kicks and leg kicks. Robert Whittaker returns with jabs. A first round is a complete toss-up here. Who are you rewarding more? I think in the bottom left hand of the screen, they were showing like where everyone's strikes were landing. Obviously, Whittaker landed a lot more headshots, but Cannonier landed a lot more body and leg kicks. So, you decide what matters more, the leg kicks or the headshots. You decide. It was a complete toss-up. I can't really decide on who won that one. If I were to pick who won that, I would say Cannonier, because Cannonier was heavily focused on getting those... because here's the thing. Although Whittaker was winning out in the jabs, he didn't win out that much. Cannonier was able to pull out some jabs, pull out some boxing ability, while also going in for some leg kicks and body kicks. So, yes, I would give the score there for Cannonier off the basis he had a better combination of strikes overall compared to Whittaker. And then in the second round here, Cannonier is trying to make it to a boxing match for some reason, and I found this very strange. He should have never done this. Instead of going for leg kicks, Whittaker is eating him with jabs, and Cannonier is responding with also jabs. And although, yes, Cannonier does have the reach advantage over Robert Whittaker, it's just not turning out well for him. There was a 2.5 period in time in the second round straight, to which Robert Whittaker was constantly giving Cannonier some jabs again, hitting some vicious strikes. And obviously, in the striking exchanges here for the first 2.5 minutes, Whittaker was winning. Whittaker, second round does go to Whittaker, as Cannonier tried boxing Whittaker too long in the second round instead of sticking to his game plan of throwing the leg kicks and body kicks. And then the fight stats in the bottom left hand showed who accumulated and accomplished more strikes. And the number of strikes that Cannonier was able to land of leg kicks and body kicks was a lot less compared to the first round. Meanwhile, Whittaker was able to be a lot more consistent and pulling off the headshots in the second round. So first round was a toss-up, a little lenient on Jared Cannonier, but in the second round it was obviously Robert Whittaker. I don't know what Cannonier was thinking here. He should have not made this to a boxing match, because here's the thing. By the end of the second round, even though Whittaker was winning the large majority of that, Whittaker's leg was red. But his leg was red, it was going slow, and he was not switching stances here. So what stops Cannonier from constantly hitting that one same leg over and over again? Nothing stopped him, but nothing stopped Cannonier from landing those leg shots except himself. And then we get to the third round here. Whittaker lands ironically enough, Whittaker, he lands a right head kick and stuns Cannonier. And you know the guy is stunned because he starts walking backwards, and he's like stumbling as if he's a drunk guy in a bar, and like his arms are going down a lot, his eyes are all glazed over, so he starts falling backwards here. Whittaker, he sees this. Whittaker comes in, starts grappling with Cannonier. Cannonier, he's got great wrestling background here, but because he's stunned, he can't really react all that well. Cannonier is pressed up onto the cage as Whittaker goes from half guard to mount position. Cannonier tries to get out and is forced to get on his back, while Whittaker works for a rear naked choke. Cannonier is able to get back up, but with 2 minutes left into the third round here, by this entire ordeal of Whittaker landing the clean jabs, him getting the knockdown, him grappling, him moving from half to mount position to back and landing in some ground and pound shots, all that took place over 3 minutes of the 5 minute round for a third round here. So with 2 minutes left, Cannonier has a lot to come back from. Cannonier attempts his own head kick, but Whittaker blocks it. And so for 1 minute straight, it was Cannonier, for some reason, going for the feel-out process. He wasn't throwing leg kicks. He was once again boxing with Whittaker. And Whittaker, constantly looking at the time, he's like, alright then, I'm going to go for a decision victory here. I know I won the second round, and I know I'm on track to win the third round here if I just keep a safe pace here. So Whittaker stopped being active in this third round. Meanwhile, Cannonier, who's still trying to recover from from the assault he had from Whittaker, he's fighting very passive. And then we get to the final minute of the fight here, as Cannonier, man, he's just throwing bombs for bombs. He just letting his arms go out there with no fear. Whittaker level changes from a jab and stalls out the final minute of the fight here, mostly just grappling with Cannonier onto the cage. Cannonier is trying to go throw in some elbows, but at this point already, he's so tired, so gassed, and he's still dazed and confused from that knockdown. They just didn't have enough time to properly recover and try to go for a comeback victory here. Whittaker wins the fight via unanimous decision. Good on there for Robert Whittaker. A really good showcase for him. He was not expected to win the fight. A lot of people thought Cannonier was going to win the fight, but this coming from a post-fight press conference straight from Dana White. He said Cannonier lost the fight. He was going to fight Israel Adesanya. Now it's going to be Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. It's going to be the rematch. Giving here some fight stats. Robert Whittaker landed 75 out of 158 total strikes, 47%. He landed 69 of 151 significant strikes, 46%. Was 0-2 in the takedowns, which the stats are wrong there. He was able to land a takedown in that third round. Jared Cannonier, he landed 58 of 94. He was down 59 total strikes. He was down 59 total strike attempts, but he was off only by 7 total strikes they landed. He got 53 out of 89 significant strikes, 59%. So, be honest, Jared Cannonier's, his striking accuracy was great, but he didn't give enough, and he got caught by Whittaker, and he came to fight with the wrong strategy. He really did. I thought Cannonier was doing really well for himself. If he could keep up a consistent pace from the first round to the second and third, Cannonier could have won it. But he went from, alright, this would be a kickboxing fight, to a straight up boxing fight, and because he allowed it to be a boxing fight, Whittaker was able to stun him, do some ground and pound, was able to work him for a round, and then Cannonier, being all dazed and confused, just couldn't go for the comeback victory here. So, poor cornering by Cannonier, poor decision-making skills by Cannonier, good on for Robert Whittaker, and now we're going to see Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya yet again in a rematch. It's going to be a rematch, and you know what? For those of you who don't remember, Israel Adesanya and Whittaker, their fight was very close. Yes, Israel Adesanya was able to win via knockouts, but if you remember how the fight was going on, Whittaker, I believe, more than any other fighter, Whittaker, more than any other fighter in Israel Adesanya's UFC career, has landed the most strikes onto Izzy. I think there's not been any fighter who was able to handle the striking ability of Israel Adesanya better than Rob Whittaker. Yes, Rob Whittaker, he ended up getting knocked out, but for the most part, in that fight he had with Izzy, he was landing in some really good clean strikes. Israel Adesanya, the guy's a walking tank, and he just couldn't knock him out. So yes, even though Whittaker lost that fight, he had a very good, strong showing against Izzy. And if and when these two do end up fighting each other, potentially in the year of 2021, it'll be a close fight, although I'm going to go and put all my money in on Israel Adesanya. I think we're seeing the best version of Israel Adesanya ever. We're also seeing the best boxing version of Robert Whittaker. So when these two do end up fighting, it's going to be complete fireworks, and without a doubt, it's going to be an exciting fight, guaranteed. And so the fight right before that, also, we had Walt Harris versus Alexander Volkov at heavyweights, and this fight here, man, was a poking fight. Walt Harris came to this fight a lot more leaner. He was very chunky in this fight against Alistair Overeem. But Volkov, man, he just kept poking Walt Harris. I didn't know what Walt Harris was doing in this fight here. He was just trading jabs and making this to a boxing match. And the key to defeating against Alexander Volkov is to make the fight to a dirty boxing fight. Keep the fight at close quarters. Pressure the heck out of Volkov, and you'll go find a clean shot onto Volkov, and you can knock him out from there, or just stun him. Instead, Walt Harris, for some reason, he was fighting outside the pocket of Volkov, which is the fight that Volkov wants. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the corner crew and Volkov, if they do interviews, hey, what's your strategy into the Walt Harris fight? Volkov would be like, well, to poke him, to keep him outside the pocket, and to slowly take him out with my strikes. Yeah, that's what Volkov did. And the reason why Walt Harris got knocked out in this fight was because he was way, way too comfortable fighting outside the pocket, even though he wasn't winning. That's what the heck? I put my notes here. It was a poking game, Volkov's game. So Volkov hits a body kick, which obviously stuns Walt Harris. He gives the obvious face. The kick was onto the tummy of Harris. He grabs his hand. He puts his hands onto his tummy. He's yelling. Volkov sees it. Walt Harris is walking backwards. Volkov, He lunges in, he goes for a ground and pound, gets a finish, and winner of the fights via KO, 1 minute and 15 seconds into the second round, Alexander Volkov. Alexander Volkov won that fight. It's a good showing for Volkov. Just like Jared Cannonier, I think they came into their strategy was just off. It was off. Cannonier, he had a good strategy. He never was committed to it. Walt Harris, I didn't know what he was expecting. Was he expecting to go for a counter hit knockout? Was that Walt Harris' strategy? It was like he was going to go fight outside the pocket of Volkov, and then Volkov is going to go dive in there, and then Harris can go for a knockout punch via counter strike. And no, that's not going to happen. Volkov, he never ever is committed to fighting inside the pocket. Volkov does not want to go through 50-50 exchanges here. And if Walt Harris pressured Volkov the same way how Khabib was able to pressure Justin Gaethje and make him uncomfortable, which is what Derek Lewis did to Volkov. The reason why Derek Lewis defeated Alexander Volkov in that surprising comeback victory was because Derek Lewis stopped making this a boxing match, and he was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to dive in there. I'm going to throw my best bombs, because Volkov, for as good as a boxer he is, he, for the most part, isn't known for his knockout power. He's not known for his knockout arm power. So you're kind of safe. You can kind of take in some shots from Volkov until you get kind of wobbled. But if you take the risk, you are definitely going to be winning the fight. Take the risk. Make Volkov as uncomfortable as possible. Do what Derek Lewis did. No fear. Dive in there. Throw in some heavy bombs, heavy haymakers onto Volkov, fighting inside the pocket. Go clinch with the guy. That's what Walt Harris should have done. And Walt Harris, he's got a wrestling background. I don't get why Walt Harris at all isn't trying to go for a quick combination, dives in there, goes for a level change, tries for a double leg takedown, or tries to do some dirty boxing, hitting him some uppercuts onto Alexander Volkov. There are many things Walt Harris could have done in this fight. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that for some reason, and that really upsets me here. Talk about doing so. Oh man, frustrating. So Alexander Volkov, with his victory over Walt Harris, Volkov, he went to the mic, and then he proceeded to go challenge someone like JDS. And I thought to myself, hey, wait a minute, isn't JDS lower in the rankings? Yes, it's an easy win for Volkov, without a doubt. But I thought Volkov wants to go move up in the rankings here. Okay, no. So Junior Dos Santos is ranked number 6 right now, despite going through a losing streak. So JDS is indeed higher in the rankings than Volkov. So Volkov challenging JDS is the right pick. I would pick Volkov defeating JDS, which will slide him being at number 6 in the rankings. So yeah, good choice there for Volkov for challenging JDS. JDS, he shouldn't fight against anyone in the top 5. He shouldn't fight Ngannou, Blades, Rosenstrike, Miocic over him. He shouldn't fight any of those guys. JDS, with his losing streak, he has to defend his position right now. So I expect JDS versus Alexander Volkov happening sometime in early mid-2021. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, and follow me as I continue to review UFC 254. See you soon.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And we are back, and so I'm finishing up my review for UFC 254. I recommend anybody to go watch it. It was a really fun show from beginning to end. And so, this one fight here, Jacob Macoon versus Phil Hawes. Deng, you have to know Phil Hawes. He is an upcoming star in the middleweight division. So Phil Hawes, he is making his UFC debut after he knocked out somebody in the Contender Series, thus giving him a contract for the UFC, and this is his UFC pay-per-view debut after the Contender Series. How well did Phil Hawes did? Well, Phil Hawes gets a right hand, dives in, throws in some bombs on Jacob Macoon, and wins the fight. By the way, Jacob Macoon is undefeated up to this point, and he gets himself knocked out to Phil Hawes in just 18 seconds. This is the second fastest knockout of a debut in middleweight history. Phil Hawes, get ready for him. This guy is a major star coming up in the UFC's middleweight division, and I am excited for it. Oh my goodness, we have a lot of things coming up. We also have Uriah Hall versus Anderson Silva. Their high package was showed off. Daniel Cormier goes on to say that Uriah Hall was someone who we thought would be as great as Anderson Silva. Good job, Cormier, for putting Uriah Hall over. Now, I know Uriah Hall, his ceiling has lowered, and it's safe to say that Uriah Hall will never be a middleweight champion. That's not me being like Ultraman Uriah Hall. It's because his skill set and what he brings to the table isn't good enough to compete amongst the top fighters in the middleweight division. Ain't happening. So Uriah Hall, he'll be fighting against Anderson Silva, and it is official. This will be Anderson Silva's last fight in the UFC. No, it's not in the UFC. This will be his last fight ever in his MMA career. Their fight will be coming up on October 31st, which is next Saturday. Next Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, it'll be next Saturday, and it'll be Anderson Silva's last fight. Uriah Hall, I expect him to win this fight, actually. Although he's looked really well in his last recent fights. I expect Hall to win this. Hopefully, Anderson Silva. This is a very winnable fight for Silva, so it can go either way. Uriah Hall has 60-9, which I'm surprised about, because there was a period in time where Uriah Hall was tearing up people. Anderson Silva, 34-10. I expect this fight to go in favor of Uriah Hall winning this, retiring Anderson Silva. Sadly, I wish Anderson Silva's last fight was against Israel Adesanya. That was an absolute classic fight that he brought to the table. And you know what? We'll see Silva versus Hall. I'll be watching it, and I want to see how the story ends. I hope Anderson Silva leaves off, with his arms raised, being like, "Yep, winner, Anderson the Spider Silva." Have him retire, happy with his arms raised in the end. That'll be something that I want to see. And then we get to the only women's fight in the main card here. We have Lauren Murphy versus Lilia Shakarova at flyweight. So it was initially going to be Cynthia Calvillo against Lauren Murphy, and it would have been a really great fight for Cynthia Calvillo. Cynthia Calvillo was unranked this year. She was an unranked fighter. Then she fought against Jessica Ai, bumped herself up. Then she became the number 2 ranked fighter, then bounced down to number 6. Got dropped down to number 6 somehow. Not really sure about that. But it was going to be Cynthia Calvillo against Lauren Murphy. And I am really high on Cynthia Calvillo. And so for her to pull out from this fight, and we have Lilia Shakarova being the replacement fighter here, and her being the first ever Uzbekistan female fighter, fighting for the UFC, it's a big deal. But Lilia Shakarova, watching her fights, if you don't follow Lilia, she's a fine grappler, but her striking is very green. Her striking is very green. Yes, she's knocked out people in her respective promotion, but if you just look how she fights with her stance and how she moves, it's definitely not in the same level as somebody as a veteran in Lauren Murphy here. So Murphy versus Lilia Shakarova, there could have been a possibility for Shakarova winning this, but Lauren Murphy, too much of a veteran. She pretty much stopped Shakarova and beat her in every facet of the fight game here. I put out my notes. Now Lilia is bouncing and sidestepping, trying to confuse Murphy being the aggressor here. Murphy's doing better at the stand-up, but as Murphy pressures Lilia to get her back onto the cage, Lilia ducks under and gets a single leg takedown in, but Murphy escapes. Lilia attempts another single leg, but Murphy stuffs it as Lilia pressures her back onto the cage. Lilia attempts a double leg, but Murphy stumps it yet again, and gets superior clinching position here. So Shakarova here, who's mostly known for grappling ability, is easily being overwhelmed and overpowered by someone like Lauren Murphy. So right then and there, red flags ready that Lilia Shakarova will not have a good time in this fight. First round easily goes for Murphy for both superior grappling control and striking proficiency. In the second round, Lilia struggles to wrestle her as they clinch towards the cage. Murphy gets a leg trip in and slowly works herself to the back of Lilia and clinches a rear naked choke. Winner by submission 3 minutes and 31 seconds into the second round here is Lauren Murphy. And then we go to the opening fight of the card here. We got Magomedov Ankalaev versus Ion Cutelaba at light heavyweights. The two trade leg kicks and are trying to feel each other out initially. Oh yeah, first hand. So Cutelaba and Ankalaev, they had their first fight be very controversial in that both fighters were scrapping it out. There's a 50-50 exchange to which Ankalaev was able to go stun Cutelaba, but Cutelaba, he was still standing up still. He wasn't knocked down, he was just stunned by a strike, and the referee was able to break them up, and everyone was confused. Cutelaba was upset. So there's the rematch here. Kutalaba is doing a whole lot of head movement and walking him down. Ankalaev lands a left leg kick, but Kutalaba lands a right counter. Ankalaev is winning in the 50-50 exchanges here. Kutalaba is lunging in, but Ankalaev is responding by sidestepping, landing a counter combination, or clinching with a knee. So what Kutalaba is doing, he's doing a lot of movement. His boxing form is good. It is when he has a tendency of overcommitting in these striking exchanges here, as in like Kutalaba, he's doing a good job. He's trying to feint in, going for some strikes, being able to go duck under. He's dodging all of Ankalaev's strikes. He's being able to go parry Ankalaev. He's able to go feint in some strikes and get some land some clean strikes onto Ankalaev. He's doing well for himself. Ankalaev is confused. He doesn't know how to handle this, but Kutalaba, as he dives in, Ankalaev, he's always sidestepping and hitting counter punches, and he does this multiple times in this first round here. Multiple times. It becomes to a point where Kutalaba, he's fine fighting at the neutral position, but when he dives in there and overcommits, it's not going to end up well for him. So Kutalaba, he's constantly lunging in. He's always losing in these exchanges here. Ankalaev, he hits a straight left hand in the final minute, getting a knockdown. 20 seconds later, Kutalaba lunges in yet again, for some reason, with an overhand right. Ankalaev ducks under, hits a right hand, then a left hand hook. Ankalaev gets on top to throw a hammer fist. Kutalaba is out. Winner by knockout, 4 minutes and 19 seconds into the first round is Nurmagomedov Ankalaev. Ayan Kutalaba, I didn't know what you were going to go for there, dude. Kutalaba should have... I know there are a lot of fighters who have the tendency of being ultra passive, but Kutalaba, the exact opposite, was ultra aggressive for no real reason. He should have been fighting at the neutral a lot more against Ankalaev, because that was the only time where it was like dead on even. I would say that Kutalaba, he was able to figure in some good counter strikes as Ankalaev became very impatient and he himself started to lunge in there. But by the 2-minute mark of this fight, it just became very obvious that Kutalaba was like so focused into trying to make this to a scrapyard fight like how it was in the first time. And if there's any evidence to show for it from the first fight, Ankalaev was winning in the 50-50 exchanges. Yes, he landed some clean strikes onto Nurmagomedov, but in the end, he lost. He lost that first fight because he was caught more than Ankalaev. And so in the second fight, he yet again got caught himself from these strikes. So Kutalaba, wrong, very questionable strategy there again. I know, like this entire card is comprised of fighters who came in either outmatched or they end up overthinking these fights. Kutalaba, he overshot in lunging in for the dirty boxing strikes. Ilya Shakarova, she was a replacement fighter. She got overwhelmed really easily here, and she didn't have really time to... She's a less developed fighter than Lauren Murphy. We have Jacob Macoon, who just... Honestly, this should have been a closer fight between Macoon and Phil Hawes. It should have been closer, but Phil Hawes is just a fine physical specimen, and he's definitely going to be a great athlete for the future of the middleweight division. I expect big things from Phil Hawes, maybe being part of the top 12 in the middleweight rankings by the end of 2021, maybe. Walt Harris, I'm not really sure why he was super committed to boxing with Alexander Volkov in the neutral position when he really shouldn't be. Jared Cannonier, he stopped throwing leg kicks for some reason. I thought if he got committed to the leg kicks instead of the boxing, he would have won the fight against Whittaker. And the main event here, Justin Gaethje, you know what? He did the best he could. Sadly, Khabib Nurmagomedov, he was a great fighter, one of the best of all time. Now, is he the GOAT? I'm not really sure yet. He is, without a doubt, greatest UFC lightweight champion, greatest UFC lightweight fighter of all time. I am not denying that. I checked up that he has surpassed BJ Penn in terms of title defense. Yeah, so he has surpassed BJ Penn in terms of title defenses and days holding onto the belts. And obviously, Khabib, his matchups were a lot more competitive than BJ Penn's matchups, if you look at them side by side. So, Khabib, he's retiring as the greatest lightweight champion of all time, one of the all-time greats. Without a doubt, he's going to be a future UFC Hall of Famer, one of the best MMA fighters of all time. Sadly, 2020 has been a tough year. It's been obviously a super tough year for Khabib. His father passing away, him going through this period of like self-reflection, looking at himself and being like, okay, what else do I want to do beyond, just being a fighter here for the UFC. Note, he did say that he wants to go. He did say that this is his last fight fighting for the UFC. He might fight elsewhere. We're unsure about that. I was looking for his interview for the UFC fight, for the UFC post-fight presser. We didn't see that. All we had was Dana White and Whittaker. It was like a 17.5 minutes presser that was done, which is super short because these pressers usually last like an hour. Whittaker really didn't have much to say other than the fact that he believed that he should fight against Israel Adesanya. Dana White confirms that's going to be Israel Adesanya against Robert Whittaker, and he also says he's unsure about the future of the lightweight division. Michael Chandler, Ferguson, Poirier, Conor McGregor, those are names that are being thrown out there, but we don't know what really is the order of events that should be taken to finish off on like who should be the next lightweight champion, because the belt is going to be vacated. We do know that on Tuesday, when they changed the pound for pound rankings, Khabib might be ranked number 1 as the best pound for pound fighter for the UFC, considering that Jon Jones has vacated his title and is currently inactive right now. He'll be making his UFC heavyweight debut in 2021. But it's still strange though. The best pound for pound fighter for the UFC has retired, and the second best fighter, Jon Jones, is currently inactive. Like, what the heck is up with that? But one reason why Khabib didn't show up in the post-fight presser was apparently he had a toe injury. He had a toe injury and immediately got shipped to the hospital, so he wasn't available for press week. But as the week goes on, we are going to learn more about the future of Khabib. Do I think he's going to fight for the UFC? No, I don't think so. The guy sounds like he is sure about this. He is sure he doesn't want to come back here. He's ready to move on to the next step and to the next part of his life. I'm happy for the guy. Whatever he does, I hope he does really awesome at it. Khabib's time in the UFC is definitely memorable. He's one of the all-time greats. And whatever happens in his future, hopefully things go well in his way. And so before I sign out here, I want to give a short preview for UFC Fight Night Hall vs. Silva. Obviously, the main event will be Anderson Silva vs. Uriah Hall. They'll be main eventing the October 31st show, coming up at 4 p.m. at the UFC Apex facility building. You can watch on ESPN+. Co-main event, which I believe will be without a doubt the best fight of the night, is going to be Andre Fili versus Bryce Mitchell. If you guys have not followed Bryce Mitchell, he is a diamond in the rough here. We have Kevin Holland here, who's trying to climb up the rankings here in the middleweight division against Makhmadov Muradov. Maurice Green versus Greg Hardy. Bobby Green against Thiago Moises. We got a lot of... Honestly, I don't think any fight here, with the exception of Uriah Hall versus Anderson Silva, ending by decision. We have a lot of fights here that can go either way. I guess right now, Bryce Mitchell versus Andre Fili, that's going to go by split decision in favor of Bryce Mitchell. If you have not followed Bryce Mitchell yet, I recommend you do. And if you're new to the sport, or if you don't know the name of Bryce Mitchell, I recommend that being the fight you need to watch. And obviously, Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall, this will be his retirement fight. All MMA fans should watch this, because, you know what? We have Khabib retiring, we have Anderson Silva retiring. We should be appreciative of these fighters while they are still competing. So that's coming up this Saturday. And that brings us to a close. All I gotta say is thank you. You have been a great audience. Thank you for listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would ask you, please remember to subscribe to this show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.